From Music Row in Nashville, Tennessee, this is the nation's #1 show for the family caregiver. This is Hope for the Caregiver. I am Peter Rosenberger, bringing you more than 30 years of struggling to care for someone who is vulnerable, who has disabilities, who's in chronic pain. These are very difficult challenges that are facing 65 million Americans. What is it like to help that person? How do you help that person? Somebody's pushing the wheelchair. Somebody's back and forth to a nursing home or a hospital. Somebody is dealing with a child with special needs. What does it look like to help somebody who looks so capable? They're handling these things that are so challenging and so difficult, and they don't look like they necessarily need help, even though you know they do, but you don't know what to say, and sometimes we don't even say anything. And for those of us who are doing this, we don't even know what to ask sometimes. We don't know what help looks like to ourselves. That's what this show is all about, and we are so glad that you're here. If you want to be on the show, the number to call is 877-655-6755, 877-655-6755. I am on orders to say that slow. And, you know, I wrote my book slow because I knew a lot of people didn't read fast, but I tend to I tend to say the number too fast. So 877, for those of you in McDuncan, 877-655-6755. And you call that number, and guess what? You'll be on the show. Now, joining me on the show is a man that you all know and love. He is the Baron of the Board, the Sultan of Sound, the Earl of Engineering. He's the man who put the word care into perpetual care. He is John Butler, the Count of Mighty Disco, everyone.
The Count of Mighty Disco. And if ever there was someone who needed perpetual care.
Perpetual care. You know, I spend the whole week coming up with these things for you.
Oh, I know. Just I wait with breath abated.
Bated breath.
I'm sorry, I had to go Shakespearean on you for it.
Thank you very much. You know, and I do. I try to think, what can I say about John this week? And I'm driving around the car, and people are looking at me like I'm an idiot because I'm laughing to myself in the car.
What can I say about John this week?
What can I say about John this week?
Free rent in your head, buddy.
You do. You live there.
Well, back at you.
Are you well?
I am. A lot because of this show.
Thank you. You know, you are, and I tell that to folks who are just now joining the show. For me, you've been the surprise hit of the show for me. I didn't know what to expect when I got in here. I didn't know what kind of producer I would have. And I've got other producers that have subbed in when you were out on vacation.
Right.
And they never talked on the show before they did the show, but they talked on this show.
Oh,
there's
really?
something about this show that just engages you guys in the booth.
Well, take a little bit of credit there, Peter.
It's the hair.
It has to be.
With great hair comes great responsibility, and it's a burden that I bear. Is that a
haiku?
Haiku. I got a really nice note today, just before I came into the show.
Okay.
From a lady in Washington State who wrote me and said that somebody had given her a copy of my book, Hope for the Caregiver, which is right here. For those of you following along on Facebook Live, by the way, if you want to watch the show, you can go to our Hope for the Caregiver page on Facebook.
And you can get a visual representation of that great hair.
It's stellar. We have the lights just right in here. But this is Hope for the Caregiver. I wrote this several years ago. It's now in its 5th printing, John.
Hey.
It's available on Kindle. It's available on audiobook and in the print as well. And this lady wrote me, she said, somebody gave me this book a couple of years ago, and I never read it because I thought it was going to be a devotional. And I didn't want any more devotionals. And I thought, well, okay. But then she went on to say, and I write. When I was going to do my best Casey Kasem, and he writes. And she went on to say, but I picked it up. I've got 2 special needs children, and I couldn't put it down. And she said, I was just blowing through it. All of a sudden I'm at chapter 6, and I realized this is not a devotional. This is practical help for the family caregiver. And she said how much the book meant to her. So I would just want to give a big shout out to Rachel in Washington State.
Hey, right on, Rachel.
And, we're on in Seattle there at AM 660, I believe.
And we are listening, Seattle.
We are listening. If I get that wrong, by the way, on that tag number, forgive me for those folks out. It's The Answer in Seattle.
Okay.
It's called The Answer, and it's wonderful magazine, and a wonderful station out there, and I'm very grateful for that. But I don't think she's in that area. She's up further north than.
How do you get further north?
Well, no. She's over to the eastern part of the state.
Okay,
I think.
gotcha.
I think. But anyway, I appreciate it very much, and I want to give that shout out. If this book is not, it's not what you think it is. If you've got a predisposed idea of a book for caregivers, I wrote this book to myself. I wrote it to that 22-year-old version of myself who fell in love with a beautiful woman who had a broken body. And I didn't know anything. I was dumber than a box of rocks when it came to this sort of thing.
And how
dumb were you?
I was going to say, how far you've come.
How dumb were you? I was so stupid. I put my newspaper on the television so I'd watch pay-per-view.
No.
Went to the orthodontist to get my Bluetooth fixed. I was stupid. But it's, and I thought I was a kid. And I took the helm of a medical nightmare, and I was clueless. So I wrote this book to say, if I could say anything to that young man, I said, okay, here's what's coming down the pike. And here's how we're going to get you strong for this. Here's how we're going to prepare you for this. And that's what this book is about. And it's not, there's short chapters. I know caregivers, and they don't have time to read some kind of, textbook kind of thing. And or it just, they don't. They want to read something they can pick up, put down, pick up, put down, pick up, put down. And that's what I did. And it's, I tell people it's so easy you could read it in the bathroom. I know, because that's where I wrote it. And so
it never gets old.
Well, no, it doesn't, because I know caregivers. You could, and then I've got a new book coming out this fall.
Hey, right on.
But it's my book, 7 Caregiver Landmines. It's been out. You can actually get it right now, but not the new version. The new version is going to be a little tiny gift book that you can just stick it right in your purse or your pocket, and it's real easy to carry around, and it's just kind of a field manual for caregivers.
Leave it in hotel rooms.
You could do that.
There you go.
You could do that. So anyway, that I just appreciated that, and if you don't know what to say to a caregiver, please don't struggle with that. I do know what to say. Put my book in their hands. Give them you can send the audiobook as a gift certificate from Amazon. There are so many ways you can help them, but don't stammer and stutter over the words. I've got that. I've written them out for you. And I do know what to say. I speak fluent caregiver, and that's what this show is about. And by the way, if you speak fluent caregiver and want to be on the show, 877-655-6755. And I am, we would love to have your calls. Oh, and later on the show, guess who's calling in?
Oh, I think I know, but go ahead.
Our Canadian caregiver correspondent.
Oh, she's so classy.
Tracey Maxfield.
Yes, she is.
And you know what we're talking about today? Dementia care in the ICU and the emergency room.
Oh.
When you're taking somebody who has dementia, or they get ICU. Did you know that this is a thing? ICU delusion.
What is this?
You can get into the ICU for lengthy periods of time, and it really will disorient you.
I imagine, yeah. It's
like
a casino. All the lights are on all the time, and there's no clocks anywhere.
Yeah, I wonder why they do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she's going to be calling in, and then let's squeeze this in before we go to our break here. We always have, at this time of the day, at time of the show, our caregiver tip of the day. Our caregiver tip of the day, brought to you by our folks, friends at AARP of Tennessee. That's aarp.org/TN, and they have a wealth of services for family caregivers. And today is respond, don't anticipate. Respond, don't anticipate. We would have accepted wait. We would have accepted wait, but to say it nicer, we say respond, don't anticipate. And it's the reason I put this in here is because I was doing martial arts one time, and I was learning some new techniques, and lo and behold, I was watching this guy coming at me, and he was going to we were sparring on the mat, and I was learning some things I was going to do to counter a punch, and I was sure he was going to punch me, certain of it. So I was looking at his shoulder instead of looking at what I was told to look at by my instructor from day one, which is to look at the center point on their chest, because you can't get distracted by their eyes, and you can see peripheral vision there of everything that's moving there. And so I'm looking at his shoulder, waiting for that punch because I know he's going to do it. I'm anticipating the punch. And he tags me with a roundhouse kick to the chest. So
I want video. I want video.
It was uncomfortable, and it did hurt a little bit, but it hurt my pride more than anything because I should have known better. I was a first-degree black belt at the time, and I should have known better.
What we learned.
It's a perpetual state of learning, just like you're the perpetual care.
Hey.
And so I thought about that life lesson for caregivers. We are constantly anticipating what's going to happen with our loved one, our situations, our finances, or this or that or that. And we're just, okay, we're locked in and this is what's going to happen. But it hasn't happened yet. And so we gear ourselves up to react to something that hasn't happened, that may not happen. And therein lies the problem.
Those are spent resources that are unnecessarily
spent. They are.
Spent.
Physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, every level you're spending these things. Well, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about this? And, I've learned the hard way. We're not there yet. We're going to deal with what we have right now, and we're going to respond to what's coming, not react or not anticipate. And I felt like that was something that some of you today may have some value for that. Because I know what that's like to get in that situation where it becomes a squirrel cage in your head and you're playing out every kind of worst scenario. I mean, how many of you right now, just think about it right now, how many of you all are living in the wreckage of your future, just planning out the worst case scenarios and you're all torqued up about it? I get that. Get it and done it. I mean, I've done this and it's unpleasant. And it's uncomfortable and it's unproductive. And it, like you said, John, that's a beautiful way to put it. It's a waste of resources. Hey, look, we got to take a quick break. That's our caregiver tip of the day: to respond, don't anticipate. And that is brought to you by our friends over at AARP of Tennessee, aarp.org/TN. This is Hope for the Caregiver, the nation's #1 show for the family caregiver. We're live on Facebook at Hope for the Caregiver. We're on Twitter, Hope for Caregiver, the number 4. And we are here for you. We're grateful that you're listening, and we'll see you in just a moment.
Here's some great news. If you missed the deadline to sign up for health insurance, or if you signed up for a plan you're not happy with, you still have a choice. MediShare is a healthcare sharing program. Hundreds of thousands of Christians are part of this. It can save you a lot. Typical savings for a family is about $500 a month. You can join MediShare anytime. It's easy to call and look into it. There's no pressure at all. And man, what a difference it can make. 855-25-SHARE. That's 855-25-SHARE.
Have you ever struggled to trust God when lousy things happen to you? I have. I'm Gracie Rosenberger, and in 1983, I experienced a horrific car accident leading to 80 surgeries and both legs amputated. I questioned why God allowed something so brutal to happen to me, but over time, my questions changed, and I discovered courage to trust God. That understanding, along with an appreciation for quality prosthetic limbs, led me to establish Standing with Hope. For more than a dozen years, we've been working with the government of Ghana and West Africa, equipping and training local workers to build and maintain quality prosthetic limbs for their own people. On a regular basis, we purchase and ship equipment and supplies. And with the help of inmates in a Tennessee prison, we also recycle parts from donated limbs. All of this is to point others to Christ, the source of my hope and strength. Please visit standingwithhope.com to learn more and participate in lifting others up. That's standingwithhope.com. I'm Gracie, and I am Standing with Hope.
Welcome back to the show for caregivers. Couldn't get it right.
Tell me something I don't know.
Listen, that's the way we caregivers feel about all the time, and we just can't get it right. But you know what? I will tell you this. As a caregiver, we tend to harshly judge ourselves over our job performance. And I get that. I understand it. I'm the same way. But if we're going to judge ourselves, and we say we can't get it right, then let's be fair and let's also judge ourselves by our attendance record. Okay? Because we're showing up. We keep showing up. And I don't care how bedraggled we are when we get there, we're still showing up. So that's something worth celebrating. So, hey, welcome back to the show, For Caregivers About Caregivers, hosted by a caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberg. I'm so glad that you're with us. If you want to be on the show, and if you feel like you can't get it right, but you know what? You're in the right place. 877-655-6755. And I also want to give a special shout out to my friend Denny. You remember we had Denny in the studio with us on the show, and wonderful comedian, great guy, but he's over at hospital here in Nashville with his wife who's had back surgery and a little bit of complications following the back surgery. Mm-hmm. And so he's in the club, and he's in this world. And so Denny and Sandy, I want to just let you know that our hearts are with you, and I'm glad that she's on the path for recovery, and we thank you for keeping us posted on that. So, hey, listen, one of the things we also like to do on this show is we like to have our senior moment, today's senior moment, but we're auditioning new theme songs for today's senior moment. See, we got our great...
I couldn't resist, man.
Okay,
now
that's this week's audition for the today's senior moment theme song.
The theme from the Golden Girls.
The theme from the Golden
Absolutely.
Girls. So if that's a song that you feel like would be appropriate for our today's senior moment section, then you're free to go ahead and join us on Hope for the Caregiver on Facebook Live and let us know, and post on there that you give it 2 thumbs up or whatever you want to give it up. And 877-655.
No, Never Gonna Give You Up is a different song by Rick Astley. That's
Never Gonna Give You I'm not gonna give you up. Never going to give you up. How do you do that?
Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down.
There you go.
Never going to run around and desert you.
John Butler, everyone. John Butler. Listen to that. 877-655-6755. If you think that that's the right theme for our today's senior moment section. Now we'll take requests. If you think if
you got suggestions, I think it needs to be a little punchier, to be perfectly honest.
Well, Lord knows we're punchy enough on this show.
Hey, watch it.
Hey, see what I did there? See what I did?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So our today's senior moment. Do we need to play the theme song again?
Thank you for being a friend.
Okay. All right. If that's what you want us to do, this is a listener-driven show. We'll consider it. All right. Today's senior moment brought to you by our friends at Morning Point Senior Living and Memory Care. And that's morningpoint.com, morningpointe.com. This is something I've been dealing with a lot over the years. Have a regular conversation about drug interaction.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Okay. Now, don't underestimate the power of over-the-counter drugs to mess up stuff too. All right. And foods.
Yeah, maybe you need to cut out the coffee.
Well, now you've gone from preaching to meddling there.
I'm sorry, I should
cut out the kofifi. Cut out the
Hey.
kofifi. As the president would say, cut out the kofi. Let me tell you something. It's great kofifi. Believe me. So, but you can't, like if you're on Coumadin, for example, you don't want to be, which is a blood thinner, you don't want to be taking a bunch of heavy green vegetables. At least you don't want to be altering it if it can really mess it up, your clotting factor. So, but the problem is sometimes we get a little bit lax in this issue, and we take all these things and we start accumulating a series of regular prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs or whatever, and we don't think about them interacting. That one of them can cause your blood pressure to get kind of messed up. One of them can cause this kind of thing.
And have things that are completely, it doesn't do this normally at all. But in the presence of something else, it creates an entirely new effect that you didn't even expect.
There are certain types of antibiotics that when Gracie takes them, for example, and she takes Coumadin a lot. She's on. She has a lot of problems with regulating her clotting factor with her stuff. Well, she's had 48 transfusions in her life.
So, yeah.
So she's had some blood issues over the years. So, but if she does that, if she takes one of these types of antibiotics, certain kinds, like sulfur-based, what is it? Sulfur-based? Is that what sulfur drugs? Sulfur drugs, yeah. They will cause her INR to just skyrocket. She'll start bleeding too much. And so you don't want to, just do this in a vacuum. You got to make sure everybody knows what's going on. And usually a primary care doctor is supposed to handle all that, but all too often it just falls through the cracks. So have regular conversations about drug interactions, and that is our today's senior moment brought to you by our friends at Morning Point, morningpoint.com. That's point with an E, Senior Living and Memory Care Center. Hey, look, there's more coming, and Tracey Maxfield's going to be here. We're going to talk about dementia care patients and the ICU and emergency rooms. All right? So don't go away. We'll be right back. 877-655-6755. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver. We'll be right back.
Make a one man weep, make another man sing. Change your heart to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love.
Welcome back to the show for Caregivers About Caregivers, hosted by a caregiver. I am Peter Rosenberger, bringing you 3 decades of experience to help you stay strong and healthy as you take care of someone who is not. And we are so glad you're with us. 877-655-6755. And as is our custom, once a month, we have a very special guest. She is our classy Canadian caregiver correspondent, Tracey Maxfield, author of Down the Rabbit Hole. She is a 35-year plus nurse with expert care in dementia patients, and she's bringing her ample wisdom to this particular issue for us and gives us lots of practical tips. So, Tracey, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Peter. How are you?
For a man of my age and limited abilities, I think I'm doing okay. What do you think, John? So I am thrilled to have you here, and we're going to jump right into this issue because I want you to just vamp with this and talk about this just a little bit. When you have a dementia patient and you have to take them to the emergency room or they're in the ICU, and ICU can breed its own form of delusional type of awareness anyway.
Absolutely.
Talk about that and some tips that you've seen over the years and some suggestions you would have for folks that are dealing with that, because taking somebody with dementia to the emergency room is no picnic.
Not at all. And the interesting thing is that about 7 million people in the U.S. in hospital are going to develop delirium, which is actually quite scary. So delirium, more common in a person with dementia going to hospital because, as you can imagine, unfamiliar surroundings, people they don't know, bright lights, noisy, and they're going to the hospital because they're unwell. So infection in itself, such as a bladder infection, is known to trigger the risk of a delirium. What I would suggest is for any caregivers who has a loved one with dementia is to maybe get a little care package. Think of it as a bag or a box or something that you're going to have things in that you can actually take with you to the hospital if they're going to the emergency department, if they're admitted, or even if they're in the ICU. And in it, you're going to have things that are going to help try and reduce either if they have a delirium or to try and stop the delirium from actually beginning. So you want to have, obviously, the usual medical documents, insurance. You need their list of medications, their allergies, and you also want their medical history, because when someone with dementia goes to the emergency department, or if they're unconscious and go straight up to the ICU, there's no one who's going to have that information. And if you're not able to accompany the person, then make sure the bag or the box goes with that person. Because the person with dementia, if conscious, is not going to be able to answer those questions, and that in itself is going to stress them, and they're going to start exhibiting behaviors and wanting to leave.
So it's basically like having your medical alert bracelet 2.0, you know.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Also, you should make sure that there's a card or even a letter that the staff can read, which will describe that the loved one has dementia, what type it is, if there's anything that really scares them, any behaviors that triggers them, and things that they like to do. Because if you have someone that's always been a walker and they're in the emergency room and they want to just walk around and see what's going on, you don't want them to come and sedate and restrain that person if this is normal behavior for them. And so by giving them that piece of information, that'll also reduce the risk of the person developing delirium, because medications will trigger a delirium. Restraint will definitely do that, because who wants to be tied down? You automatically go into fight and get so stressed. And because a person with dementia has a lowered stress response, whereas you and I would get very angry but maybe could accept it, they won't understand and they will continue to fight, and they'll start having all different thoughts. Maybe if they were in a war, you can imagine what that could trigger. Also, take their mobility aids. If they've got false teeth, glasses, hearing aid, because they need to be able to communicate. And also put in maybe a favorite pillow or a blanket, a memory book or a photograph album, because in the emergency room, you want to keep them comfortable and safe, but you want to distract them because it's inevitable. They're trying to make sense of their environment. And you all know in the emergency room, you have pages and buzzers and alarms and lights. And so you want to ask for a private room, or you want to go maybe into a corner which is quieter. Maybe pull the drapes so there's a little bit of privacy. If it's too bright, ask if they can reduce the light. Headphones, noise cancelling headphones with their favorite music is a great tool, because that will distract them from all the outside noises and also help them calm down.
You know, by the way, Tracey, let me interrupt there. That's probably a pretty good idea to do with autism patients as well.
Absolutely. And it's actually anyone that has a Down syndrome, anyone that has any kind of cognitive or behavioral challenges that will be exacerbated if they go to that type of environment. It's also really good to use when the person, if they're admitted to hospital and in the ICU, the same thing would apply, because the ICU is extremely noisy and that's a very, very scary place. And so if you can't stop the noises of all the various machines, just putting the earphones on and the music can already promote a much calmer environment. Another way is to advocate for your loved one and ask the staff not to use restraint until it's absolutely necessary, to limit the use of sedative drugs and things like Valium, because that in itself creates confusion and drowsiness and also makes the person more inclined to maybe fall or get dizzy and fall out of bed. And I think in the ICU especially, because they're wired up to everything, I think what the caregivers need to do is maybe start having a schedule so there's enough people, maybe friends, family, people from the church who can come and sit with the person, talk to them, comfort them, share memories, go through the memory book, maybe watch something on the television if they're conscious, and try to just keep orientating the person and reassure them. And that's true for anyone in the ICU, because 85% of people in the ICU, regardless of any kind of dementia, they can be 19 years old, 25 years old, could develop a delirium just because of the environment in which they are.
Well, and the caregiver as well, too. I've spent so much time in the ICU, and you really become, just as a caregiver, you become disoriented. And your days and nights just get all mixed up, and it's really difficult. So these are good things. Spend a little bit more time with ICU delirium.
So ICU delirium is usually due to the heavy sedation, especially if they've initially put them on a ventilator. If they're unconscious on the ventilator, then really there's not going to be that many behaviors that are triggered. But as they start to come out of that and they're trying to reduce their time on the ventilator, their sedation, they're going to start pulling at the IVs, and the inability just to move and to leave that environment is stressful for anybody. And so that's where the music is helpful, the people at the bedside, the distraction, maybe depending on where the IVs and the cannulas are situated, maybe encourage the staff, instead of restraining the person, maybe to just bandage that arm, or maybe they have a favorite item of clothing that you're able to put over the area so the person doesn't start picking at the area and then obviously create more problems, because no one wants to rip out cannulas and create more bleeding and infection. And I think also in the care package that you're going to have, I think it's important that the caregiver has to help them, because you need to be as well rested and relaxed as possible to help your loved one in ICU get through whatever has brought them to that point. So you want to have food and snacks to make sure your medications, and maybe when the person is sleeping, you have a book or puzzles or something that you can do whilst you sit at the bedside. But with regards to ICU, I think the aim is when the initial emergency is treated and the person is stabilizing and they're planning to move them to the step-down unit, that's when you're going to start working with the doctors to decrease the sedation. Let's try and get them up and moving and mobilizing, because that reduces the risk of delirium, and also try to get them off that ventilator, because there's nothing that person wants to do more than get that ventilator out of their throat, and that creates great panic and fear when they wake up and realize they can't talk. So maybe take a message board or have a computer. If they're able to, they can point maybe to pictures of things or big letters so they can tell you what they're wanting or what their concern is.
Once again, Tracey, you have just really shown why you're such an incredible asset to this show, and we're just so grateful. I do appreciate it. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Go to my webpage, www.traceymaxfield.com. And actually on my webpage now, there is a contact information, but also there's 27 articles on dementia, or the different aspects of dementia, many of which we've discussed on your show, that they can read up on, print off, and just use it as a helpful tool.
And we'll podcast this out and have it available to folks later on, and we'll post this on all social media outlets. And John and I want to both extend our congratulations for you getting your website. I know I pushed you hard on that, Tracey. And but you are just such a treasure to this show, and thank you for that. That is great stuff. And we're going to talk to you next month.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
All right. We'll see you, Tracey. That's Tracey Maxfield talking about ICU delirium. We're talking about going to the emergency room with someone with dementia and so forth. And did you hear what she said, John? She said, take their favorite pillow. You know, as caregivers, we have to spend a lot of time in the hospital. We have to spend a lot of time in the waiting rooms and so forth, and our loved ones have to go. And you never want to take your pillow to the hospital because it'll get hospital cooties. I mean, really, do you want hospital cooties, John?
No, not really. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around there.
You know, and so why would you want to take your favorite pillow to the hospital, except if you could wash your pillow without losing the shape?
There you go.
Now, guess who can do that?
I wonder.
Mike Lindell and mypillow.com. I'm not kidding. I've got 2 of them, and they are wonderful, and you can just throw them right in the washer and dryer.
Hey.
And it's perfect to take because, we have to sleep in miserable places, but we don't have to be miserable. And we can get a pillow. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but if you type in the word caregiver, go to mypillow.com. Type in the word caregiver under the promo code, the word caregiver, and you get 50% off of the 4-pack and 2 of the Travel Anywhere pillows. So now you have no excuse but to put something nice under your head, no matter where you are. And as caregivers, I promise you, you're going to sleep in a waiting room. You're going to sleep on very uncomfortable hospital furniture. You're going to sleep on a hospital room floor. Done it? Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah.
It is not cool. And who wants to put their pillow on a hospital room floor?
I mean, they do what they can, but it's still a hospital.
But you can wash these and throw them in the dryer, and they never lose their shape.
And a dryer will kill everything.
It will.
Yeah.
And there's certain things Gracie will not let me dry. She just will not let me do it. She said, don't you put that in the dryer, but not on my pillow.
There you go.
So go to mypillow.com and type in the promo code caregiver, and you can get a discount off of those things. That's pretty cool, isn't it? And also, she said, and I know we got to go to the break here, John, but real quick, she said, take a book. I'm on Facebook Live right now. I'm holding up the book to take.
There you go.
And it's called Hope for the Caregiver. And if you haven't read this book, get it today. You can get it. You can download it, do the e-version. We put the e-version on sale through Mother's Day and Father's Day. And on Amazon, I think it's like $3. It's ridiculous. How do we do it? Volume reading. Volume reading. That's the key, folks. Volume reading. Get this book. Do not be a caregiver without it. There's a reason why it's so many people are reading this book and keeping it by their bedside and keeping it with them in their purses and go to doctor's office, because it is a companion guide for the family caregiver. HopeForTheCaregiver.com if you want to see more about all that stuff. HopeForTheCaregiver.com. Hey, this is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver, and we'll be right back.
I'm ready to play today. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play today.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Hey, this is Hope for the Caregiver. I am Peter Rosenberger, bringing you 3 decades of experience to help you stay strong and healthy as you take care of someone who is not, and we are glad you're with us. 877-655-6755 if you want to be on the show, if you want to be put in, if you want the coach to put you in. 877-655-6755. Boy, I really appreciated Tracey on that last call. That was good stuff.
She is
plethora.
I don't know why she's slumming it up with us.
don't tell her. A plethora of good intel.
There you go.
A plethora.
Would you call it a plethora of pinatas?
3 amigos.
Yeah.
See, I know these things. Hey, welcome back to the show. We're so glad you're with us. John, I've got kind of a good piece of news here to tell you.
Oh.
You know my wife, Gracie.
I've met her a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, she is, for those of you who don't know, and the reason I am a caregiver is because I'm married to a woman who has a lot of significant medical needs, 80 surgeries that I can count, and at least 80 more smaller procedures. It's hard to count those. 100 doctors that have treated her. We had a new one this week that she got her new doctor this week.
Do you guys have like a gift basket for new doctors or
a welcome kit?
Yeah, welcome kit.
It's more
orientation package, sort of listing of benefits, and
well, some of her doctors move or they retire, and so we have to start all over with some of them. And but she's gone through all this. This is all from a car wreck she had 35 years ago, and eventually it cost her both of her legs below the knee. We started an organization called Standing with Hope. This was her vision. I was watching did you watch the royal wedding yesterday?
I was busy watching Game of Thrones.
Okay, well, I thought at first
you don't watch Game of Thrones.
No, I don't.
Yeah, that was a great joke. You just missed it.
Well,
man.
okay.
Whiff.
The big whiff. At first, I thought it was the season finale of The Bachelor. And I didn't know what's going on, but it's so. But I was watching this, and they couldn't help but think about Princess Diana and so forth. But Gracie, after she lost both of her remaining legs, she lost one leg in 91, the other one she gave up in 95, and she's laying there recovering from this surgery. She had walked for the first time on 2 prosthetic legs that morning, and then she was flipping through the television there. And she saw a documentary about Princess Diana and the work she was doing with landmine victims in Southeast Asia, treating amputees. And Gracie said, this is what I'm going to do. And so she's been doing it for now. Since 2005, we've been working with the government of Ghana to equip and train their workers on how to build prosthetic limbs. And we recycle a lot of parts, and then we'll send those parts over there. We just sent over a big, heavy shipment of stuff, prosthetic socks, liners, sleeves, feet, knees, all these things. And these are recycled by inmates at a local prison here in Tennessee, where they will disassemble all these limbs that come in from all over the country, and then they'll inventory the parts. And this is a partnership we have with our friends over at Core Civic, who do a lot of faith-based programs for inmates. And this is the only one in the world that where inmates recycle prosthetic limbs. And then we have to purchase some material. And we send teams over there with prosthetists and so forth. Now, that's prosthetist, John, prosthetist.
Thank you for clearing that up for me. I had a entirely different set of notes written down.
But this summer, after a lengthy hiatus due to serious health issues that we really didn't think Gracie was going to make it a couple times over the last several years, she's going to go back to Ghana with us.
Really?
We're going to take a team of 6 over there at the end of July.
Okay.
And we're going to go over there, and she's going with us.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I knew it had been a long time, and
it has been.
She really enjoys that, and they love it when she does.
Well, when she shows up, several things happen. And she can't. She'll tell you. She'll be the first to tell you. She said, "I can't do a whole lot," but she said, "I don't know that I have to. I think I just show up." You know, women with severe disabilities like hers are not necessarily valued in developing countries. I don't know if you knew that or not, John.
I can make some assumptions, yeah.
But they're not necessarily esteemed well. But when she shows up, it throws that whole argument out the window, because she shows up with just such grace and joy and excitement. And look at what she's done. And so people are walking and leaping and praising God. And if you want to be a part of this, and we're asking for you to do that, go to standingwithhope.com. Just take a look at what we're doing, standingwithhope.com. And be a part of this. Maybe you sponsor some supplies. Maybe you sponsor a team member. Whatever's on your heart. Sponsor a limb. Standingwithhope.com. And you'll give the gift that keeps on walking. Listen, we're out of time. Our wonderful theme song is playing. We got to go. John, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Hope for the Caregiver, hopeforthecaregiver.com. We'll see you next week. Today's a great day to start being healthy. Healthy caregivers make better caregivers.